Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO at checkout.
Dreaming of blissful summer days and creamy popsicles? Capture sun-drenched memories with the Orange Vanilla Dream Hydration Multiplier from Liquid IV. Just one stick and 16 ounces of water can help hydrate you better than water alone. Live your summer dream with Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code INDULGE20 at checkout.
I'm Laurah Norton, and this is One Strange Thing, the show where we search the nation's news archives for stories that can't quite be explained. Strangers. Is there anything better than that combination of the paranormal and the internet? If you've been listening for a while, then you know that we certainly love that special blend of the digital and the unexplained that is served up across networks, connecting to networks, connecting to networks. We've covered weird YouTube and the recesses of Reddit and creepypastas galore. But never have we ever truly done a deep dive into the unexplained side of Twitter, or X if you prefer. For the purposes of our story today, it will be the former because it took place way back in 2017. Before, well, a lot of things happened. Twitter has traditionally been a place for people to fire off their thoughts, whatever they might be, and kind of just let them float off into the ether. Celebrities especially enjoy doing that, and in the early days, most of all. For instance, in January of 2012, Justin Bieber simply shared, quote, "I love ARM." Us too, Justin. And in July of 2018, Post Malone plaintively asked, quote, "Is meatball and fruit?" Dionne Warwick, who, if you're too young to remember, once had her very own psychic friends network, and that's probably something that we should get into one day, has dropped many food for thought bangers on the app, including this one in February of 2020. Quote, "Hi at Chance the Rapper. If you are very obviously a rapper, why did you put it in your stage name? I cannot stop thinking about this." Or in December of 2020, quote, "Don't you think I would have warned you all about iTunes making you have that U2 album if I were actually psychic?" We do think that these examples capture how easy it can be to just tweet out into the universe. It's less laborious than a video, and with the use of hashtags, has the potential to sail into the lives of people you never even imagined reaching with your offhand comments about arms or meatballs or U2 or whatever else. The platform was, at its core, a place for connection and community and humor, staying in the know and the now, commentary on anything and everything. And yes, big ideas and debates, and also a lot of fighting, because that is what humans like to do. But on at least a few occasions, Twitter has been the place where people have offered blow-by-blow accounts of their encounters with the bizarre, the supernatural, and, dare we say, the unexplained. Some were fictional horror stories told line by line, but others were offered up as genuine experiences with the unknown. Whether or not users believed these missives is another matter entirely. But they certainly were engaged. Perhaps the most famous of all those encounters was presented by author, cartoonist, and comic book illustrator Adam Ellis, who was working at BuzzFeed back in 2017. Per the All, Adam was living in Manhattan at that time in an apartment that just might have had more history than he bargained for. Then again, maybe it wasn't about the apartment at all. On August 7th of that year, Adam tweeted 20 words that shook up the Twitterverse, at least on our side of the Weird Wide Web. He wrote, "So, My apartment is currently being haunted by the ghost of a dead child, and he's trying to kill me. Thread. Adam quickly followed up with a series of tweets, all on August 7th. He started appearing in dreams, but I think he's crossed over into the real world now. Then he wrote, "The first time I saw him, I was experiencing sleep paralysis and saw a child sitting in the green rocking chair at the foot of my bed. And then he had a huge, misshapen head that was dented on one side. I did my best to draw it. For a while, he just stared at me, but then he got out of the chair and started shambling toward the bed. I couldn't move because I was paralyzed. I have sleep paralysis fairly often. It sucks. And right before he reached my bed, I woke up screaming. I had another dream a few nights later where I was in a library and a girl came up to me and said, 'You've seen Dear David, haven't you?' I was like, 'Who?' And she said, 'Dear David. You saw him.' She continued, 'He's dead. He only appears at midnight. And you can ask him 2 questions if you said, Dear David first.' Then she added, 'But never try to ask him a 3rd question, or he'll kill you.'" Adam Ellis was nice enough to compile all his tweets in this saga into a tidy webpage, which makes them easier to read now as one long story, which we appreciate. Back then, though, his audience was experiencing the story moment by moment as he fired off one more cliffhanger sentence after another. Based on what Adam suggested in his thread, this had all been going on for some time. In fact, he wrote for BuzzFeed in August of 2017, quote, "It's gotten bad enough that I fear for my safety, so I decided to write everything down in a Twitter thread in case I go missing." So it wasn't exactly a play-by-play, at least not on the 7th of August. He explained that, quote, "A couple of weeks had passed without incident. But then, David appeared again." According to the Ghost in My Machine blog, quote, "The next time Ellis saw Dear David, he asked him a couple of questions and discovered that he had died in an accident in a store. A shelf had fallen on him. But Ellis made one potentially fatal mistake. He accidentally asked a 3rd question." We've talked about 3s and their potent presence and magic in fairy tales, and in horror plenty of times before. The important thing to note now is that Adam had specifically been warned not to ask a 3rd question, and yet he'd felt driven to do so. Why? Well, according to his own tweets, once he heard how David had died, in a store, by a shelf, he had to know one more thing. Who had pushed the shelf? We actually wouldn't have assumed that anyone had pushed that shelf, since things have a terrible habit of falling, generally speaking. But that was the burning question in Adam's mind. And when he asked it, David did not answer. And he did not try to kill Adam either. Not then, at least. According to Bustle, one of the many outlets that tracked the Dear David saga from the very beginning, Adam Ellis was understandably disturbed by his dreams. So he, quote, "did some digging after that, but couldn't find any information about a boy named David dying in an accident at a store in his city. Some time went by, Ellis moved into the apartment above the one he'd experienced all the Dear David stuff in, and he forgot about that ghost. We, don't know if he precisely fully forgot about the spirit. That would probably be difficult, considering, but it might be safe to say that he at least put Dear David out of his mind for a while. After, quote, a month or 2 went by, that's according to Adam's own Twitter, life was quiet in his new apartment. Until it wasn't. That's when his story picked up, in roughly real time, in August of 2017. As he explained, his cats had been acting strangely, gathering at the apartment door as if something was on the other side. His final tweet on August 7th was this, Quote, "And that's where I am right now. Dear David has found me, I think, and I don't know what to do. I'll keep you updated." We realize after writing that it sounds unduly ominous because it was not Adam's last ever tweet, just his last tweet for that day. Sorry. When he picked up the story 2 days later, an audience had gathered on Twitter, and they needed to know just who or what Dear David was and what exactly it wanted with Adam Ellis. For days, and then weeks, and then months, he chronicled the growing disturbance he'd experienced with the entity he'd come to know as Dear David. And Adam was telling a story, line by line, that, as Bustle wrote, kept, quote, nearly 1 million followers enthralled. The story began to unfold, with more than just tweets for the audience to sink their teeth into. According to The All, the first multimedia additions to Adam's story appeared that first day on August 7th, a picture of his cats stationed at the door. More would follow, quote, short videos, a SoundCloud recording, photos of Polaroid photos, a video of Adam taking a Polaroid and then the photos developing in real time, a screenshot of his caller ID, and strangers. All of those chronicled different events in the Dear David timeline and what seemed to be paranormal activity in Adam's own life. Eventually, he installed, quote, a motion-triggered internet-connected video camera. Think a pet cam, because that was its purported purpose. You can probably see where we're going with this. Adam's sound recording featured noises captured late in the night and early morning in his apartment that August. And the Polaroids were spooky. Some developed pitch black for no reason that he or his audience could fully explain. Adam took advice from the Twitter sphere, and he tried experiments like different distances and testing the film himself, and even placing his finger over the lens to see if user error was to blame. But he couldn't quite recreate the spooky effect of the pitch black photos that appeared twice as he snapped pictures around the apartment. The blogger Kay at the Movies noticed another strange photo, quote, a side-by-side comparison of an open doorway in which a picture taken with the Polaroid showed the doorway looking completely dark, while a photo from his phone displayed the room completely lit. It was spooky, and a week into the story, he tried the suggestion of burning sage, but it didn't help. He just began dreaming of Dear David again. He reported that the house, and we're not sure if that meant the apartment or the entire building, felt like it was shaking one morning. By the third week, he'd found mysterious bruises on his arm, and this came after a dream of Dear David dragging him through a warehouse. And then he stumbled upon a real-life empty warehouse that only held a green chair. And the rocking chair that Dear David had first appeared in, Adam said that chair was green. By the 25th of August, mysterious phone calls had begun, with the caller ID proof provided online. One after another, they popped up in quick succession. When Adam finally answered, he wrote, he didn't hear a robocaller. He heard the same sorts of noises, kind of like electricity, that his sound recordings had picked up in his apartment at night. And then there was breathing. And then, finally, a childish hello. Days later, Adam's pet cam came into play. First, on August 28th, he posted a video of the green rocking chair, Dear David's rocking chair, moving on its own. Adam said he'd been away from home that night, and that wind could not be the culprit because all the apartment windows were firmly shut. Now, yes, we watched that video. And yes, that chair was rocking. No cats were in sight. None of his pets had gone leaping from one surface to another. Adam wisely then moved that piece of furniture to his hall. And about a week later, the pet cam came back into action. This time, Adam's cats were acting up. Not that they were misbehaving. Cats stay catting, as we all know, but rather, they were responding to some pretty strange, if seemingly invisible, stimuli. One of his cats spent the evening swiping and leaping over something that never actually appeared on the camera. Adam said he was almost certain that it wasn't a bug, because he never got those in his apartment. To be honest, we are not totally convinced. As cat owners, the swiping and jumping are very familiar to us. and we've seen them jump and swipe and leap at the tiniest of insects. And those critters sure can get into apartments and homes, no matter how well sealed they might be. So we might not take much stock in this particular footage. Except for one strange thing. According to the Daily Mail, it wasn't the cat's actions that captured the attention of Twitter on those particular contributions to the thread. Rather, quote, Adam's followers were far more horrified by a seemingly innocent green glass sitting on his coffee table, which appeared to move several inches over, seemingly by itself, just after the cat started leaping around. Strangers, to be honest, we hadn't even noticed. So we returned to that first video of Adam's cat. This one's named Maxwell, by the way, and we reviewed it again. And the viewers, they were right. The green glass in the video slides several inches across the table. Some users on Twitter, they even claimed that it hovered. No humans were on screen, and Maxwell did not jostle it. That glass, yeah, it moved, and Zach Baggins was not even there to yell at it. Things, they kept happening to Adam Ellis, some more mysterious than others. Over the next months, he traveled to Japan and he saw a statue of a baby that, to some, looked a lot like his cartoon picture of Dear David. To us, it looked kind of like a baby. He also had further spooky encounters around that warehouse where he'd first seen that green chair, not far from his apartment. There, he took a grainy photo that just might have featured a ghostly face. And there were more frightening dreams of talking severed heads and the like. Strange electrical phenomena plagued the apartment. As Adam posted more photos, some that might have featured the same ghostly presence, ghost hunters and psychics began to reach out. He spotted a hearse parked at the creepy warehouse, and the same evening, a tiny figure seemed to be in the shadows outside his apartment window. Then, he decided to creep up into the attic hatch of the apartment, and there he found a marble and, per bustle, a child's shoe. And, of course, the dreams got worse, and David seemed to be crossing over from one reality to another. There were black photos afterward on Adam's camera roll, and he couldn't recall snapping them. And finally, in what we consider to be the biggest moment in the tale, Dear David visited Adam in his sleep again, or at least that's what the pet cam seemed to show. That all went down in early December of 2017. As Bustle wrote, Adam hadn't been sleeping well, so he set the camera up to record his bedroom rather than the living room. And quote, when he woke up again, he had hundreds of pictures to sort through. Based on the fact that the app was set to take a picture once every minute, it looks like Ellis had been asleep for not quite 6 hours when he jolted back awake, as he put it. And then, well, he began to go through the photos. At first, there was nothing. But then, well, there was. A small figure appeared in the frame, and then kept appearing. And we should note, there is a live person, who we assume is Adam, in the bed. Definitely no stack of pillows covered with a blanket here. Okay, so here's what we saw. What looks something like a cross between a large doll and a Nightmare Before Christmas claymation thing enters the photo stream, and it moves around Adam's room. It's in a chair collapsed, it's standing on the bed, and, as Bustle noted, quote, what's more, David seemed to know he was being recorded. The final photo seems to show well, we'll call it a creature, staring straight into the camera. According to Bustle, one Twitter user strung all the photos together to create an animated GIF and added the comment, quote, has anyone done this yet? David moved the camera. And, yeah, the camera does seem to shift. We think it's hard to concentrate with the giant doll ghost thing hopping around the room because, honestly, we've pretty much had that exact nightmare. But it does seem to happen. And then, suddenly, it's gone. And that was the high point. There were more updates after that, of course. But things died down. Not literally, thankfully. Adam Ellis left BuzzFeed and published an excellent graphic novel, we'll link that in the show notes, and secured a movie deal based on the Dear David story that came out from Lionsgate in 2023. We haven't seen that, so no editorializing there. What people have kept talking about all this time, though, is what truly, exactly happened to Adam Ellis. There are at least 3 camps, as far as we can tell. That Dear David was a real ghost. That Adam Ellis constructed a darn good ghost story and fabricated plenty of supporting material to go along with it. And third, that he'd had some real experiences, like sleep paralysis, that legitimately made him afraid. That final option wouldn't explain the supporting evidence that appeared on Twitter, but we'll let that go for now. Sleep paralysis is legitimately frightening. According to the Sleep Foundation, dream figures, commonly known as sleep demons, are prominent in episodes of sleep paralysis. And the Foundation wrote that this experience can feel both real and, quote, supernatural, though they are, quote, actually the brain's way of trying to make sense of being conscious while still partially in a dream state. But the thing is, there's still much more to Dear David's story than dreams. So, strangers, could Dear David possibly have been a real ghost? Long after the Twitter thread ended, Rick Paulus of The All reached out to Adam to ask just that. And according to his article, he'd found the story too tidy, just too closely tied to the narrative beats and cliffhangers that make a good story, well, good. And he said that Adam wrote him back, explaining, quote, "It's all real. I obviously try to narrate it in a way that's readable and interesting for my followers, but it's all real stuff that's happening. If it was fake, I'd probably update more than once a week, LOL." The 2 main arguments in support of the real ghost side of things, besides Adam's word, are related to the apartment itself. One would be the strange behavior of Adam's cats, and the other is the movement of the rocking chair, and most especially the green glass. Once again, that freaked even us out. However, there are also multiple issues that a number of critics have pointed out. And you know, strangers, that we like to stay pretty neutral ourselves. But we admit, Dear David is a well-crafted story. The pacing is amazing. Supporting evidence and complications, they seem to pop up just when needed, incrementally increasing tension and adding new elements to keep the Twitterverse enthralled. And the photographic evidence and videos? As the Ghost in My Machine blog, which gives all theories a fair shake, explained, quote, "Most, if not all of the evidence Ellis has posted to his Twitter feed is incredibly easy to fake, particularly for someone with a background in visual art, who's likely quite familiar with image manipulation software. All of the images with smudges, for example, could also just as easily have been edited to include those anomalies." The blog also wrote that spooky all-black Polaroids could be achieved via lighting settings. As for the appearance of the ghost in the photos, we have discussed spirit photography so often on this podcast that we think that you might be experts by now. And in the digital age, it's easier than ever to manipulate an image. One can also, more innocently, simply see something that isn't there. There was a long-standing argument down here in Atlanta, Georgia, about Jesus being sighted in a plate of pasta advertising a restaurant called the Old Spaghetti Factory, which actually made national news. Our point is that people can see what they want to see, right? That said and that aside, we should get into what a few specific critics have noted about the most dramatic moment, the appearance of Dear David on Adam's bed. We'll be honest here. To us, the ghost looks like a doll. A really weird one that we would not want to run into at night, but a doll. Some Redditors who did the deepest dive imaginable think the figure most resembles a CPR dummy, which is a little off for us, but we can see the vision. It would be a lot of work to manipulate that doll, jump back into bed, and do it all over again. But He could have had help or just been feeling extra motivated. As for the reaction of his cats are cats, man. We've seen a cat stare at a wall for hours, or chase a gnat through a 2-story home. Or maybe they're taking care of demons for us, which we do appreciate. They can certainly see differently than humans. We cannot necessarily chalk up their actions as hard evidence. And as for that moving glass, some people on Twitter pointed out that wet glasses can actually slide pretty far across smooth surfaces. One even linked a very helpful scientific article to explain the process. That said, it's still the one where we had the most trouble, because that glass was really moving. And if Adam did it all by himself, we still are not sure how. And the story is dramatic, and it's got it all. The fairy tale threes, the real-life crossovers across continents, eerie evidence popping up and escalating violence that crosses from dream to reality at the precisely perfect moment. The most realistic hauntings that we've run across in our work at least. They've been messier, and they've been vaguer, and harder to chronicle, because things didn't unfold quite so neatly. Still, could it all have been real, and was the story just told well because it happened to a storyteller? That's what Rick et al. Pondered when he wrote the following, quote, "And here's the part of the whole thing where I'm skeptical of my own skepticism. Would a viral storytelling exercise that was meticulously planned out in advance have the foresight to actually try to mimic the any time of day or night slipstream posting of whatever the Twitter experience is? Or is the reason that it feels so authentic, just like a normal person posting at the odd free moments of their normal life, except the whole haunted apartment part? Is it simply because it's actually happening?" End quote. That is the question, strangers. As hard as it is to believe, maybe we could think that some of it occurred. Or maybe not. Either way, Adam Ellis is an excellent storyteller. We haven't been this enthralled since we watched Season 1 of Lost and Season 2 of Lost. Don't ask us about anything that came after that. It's been years, but we're still recovering. We hope you'll join us next time for another real-life story from the fine print of America's local papers, from the lives of regular people just like you and me, except for one strange thing. One Strange Thing is an independent podcast. To support the show and to hear more of the entirely true and enticingly peculiar, you can check out our premium offerings. If you'd like to subscribe on Apple Premium, you'll get both premium and ad-free early access episodes, along with ad-free and early access to our other podcast, The Fall Line. And if you subscribe to Patreon, you'll find ad-free early releases of our regular episodes, a monthly full-length bonus episode, giveaways, and blog posts. We hope you'll check out one of these options and support the show. There's a link in the show notes. And if you enjoy One Strange Thing, please take a moment to leave us a great rating or review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps.